It's dark, and we're wearing sunglasses. Hit it.
To infinity and beyond!
Get off, Napoleon. Make yourself a dang quesadilla.
I know Kung Fu.
This is one doodle that can't be undid, Holmes Gillett.
And my axe.
This should be open because it's civil rights. This is the 90s.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
1.21 gigawatts!
I'm gonna make this pencil disappear.
Gucci.
Welcome to the KendallCast Movie Roundtable. I'm your host, Kendall. With me, as always, is Ian.
What's up?
And Nick.
Hello. Jeff
is still being an adult, so he's not here tonight. We're gonna this is gonna be the Jeffrey Hughes Memorial Studio here soon. Anyway, so today we're talking about Rocky. It's a movie. It's a great movie.
It's kind of a shame that Jeff isn't here for this one because it's very. I feel like this would have been a very Jeff-heavy episode.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he would have opinions. And I have opinions. But okay, so I will say just a few things with Rocky. It is one of my favorite franchises. Although and definitely my favorite franchise that I haven't seen all the movies of. I've seen the first 5 Rocky movies and the first Creed movie. I haven't seen Rocky Balboa, and I haven't seen the Creed sequels. But for me, like, the first 4 Rocky movies are the essentials. And
I
1 and 4.
I haven't seen those. I haven't seen those either. But from what I've heard, you're not missing much. So
I've heard good. I mean, I liked the first Creed movie, and I heard the sequels were good too. But yeah, obviously Rocky Balboa had, is what it is, and Rocky 5 was bad. But I watched Rocky when I was a kid as a fan with a family, and watched the various installments over and over again. They always make me want to jog, always make me want to exercise and stuff, and like get all motivated.
Run to the top of a flight of stairs and then just pump your fists up in the air.
Yeah. And I would say the sequels like do even more so than this one, because this one is got a lot more. There's sort of a lot more grit in this. A lot of like grit and grimness to this, because all the other ones, Rocky's already a successful boxer.
Right. This one, he's just trying to prove to himself or anybody that he's not a nobody.
That he's not a bum. Yeah. Man, this movie was good. Like, I have like one minor criticism about it. Basically, I think that the way they handled, like, unfortunately, it's the Thanksgiving, which is the reason that I chose it. The way they handled that first date with Adrian was a little cringe inducing, a little bit. The sexual politics of it probably were not something that they would have happen today, but
yeah, I mean, I figure we should talk about that a little more.
Yeah, it's not quite as bad as Blade Runner, because the alternative of saying no to him wasn't you die, and it seemed at least somewhat consensual.
I felt the same way. Like, she was clearly uncomfortable, but also like she really could have just left.
Yeah,
with no
she
real
was kissing
consequence.
him back, and then they had a relationship after. So it was really weird, but it was kind of okay.
And then clearly she came around to the idea, but it did just kind of seem like, oh, in the next scene, I guess they're a thing now, right?
Well, I'm glad. I mean, I'm glad that they didn't string that dynamic along. I'm glad that she kind of came out. I mean, I think the idea was that she was that she was just shy, and that she was comfortable and she was herself.
I mean, you
later
say they
on.
didn't string it along, but that scene is like 7 or 8 minutes.
Yeah,
It's a very long scene of here, sit on this couch. Isn't this a nice couch? As he pats the newspapers.
Yeah.
Well, no,
Yeah.
but even before that, she's giving him looks. Like the camera is careful to show that although she's shy and she's kind of hiding behind her bangs, and like she's not looking at him when he's not looking at her. She's like stealing glances. So like, I think that was there. She was just very shy.
Yeah.
But yeah, still the dynamic in the apartment was a little bit uncomfortable.
Yeah, I think what it comes down to is, and as we're obviously the ones to be the experts on this, but I think what it comes down to is that the character this actually was a situation where she wasn't doing anything that she didn't want to do. She was just shy. I think that well, although she did say it was Thanksgiving, like I didn't want to go out with you on Thanksgiving. Yeah, but she's like, well, and the her brother and all that stuff. But I think she actually was that thing. It's just that you wouldn't probably tell the story this way now, because that's a sort of problematic cliche. But then she does kind of come out of her shell in the later of the movie, and then throughout the rest of the series, she's a pretty strong character.
Well, and they made the decision by the end of the first film, that like he and Adrian like professing their love for each other is like the ultimate goal, even though the only thing that matters to them at the end of the film, even though he ends up like losing the fight, it almost like glosses over the fact that that Apollo Creed was given the win. Like you have to pay attention, because what's actually going on in the scene is Rocky's calling out for Adrian, and they meet up.
All right, I had to explain boxing rules to my wife at the end of this movie. She had no idea what happened.
Yeah. I was a little bit confused too. I'm like, okay, so they made it through all the rounds, and it's a split decision. Like, what does that mean? I guess.
There's judges.
Yeah.
And the judges. So I forget if it's 3 or 5 of them. The majority said that it was that Apollo won, but it was a split. That's obviously that's a thing in the later movies, like, because if you were watching, and this is kind of the problem with boxing, like if you were watching the match, like if it had gone 2 more rounds, Rocky probably would have won. Because he had the momentum at the end, but he still got his butt kicked for 14 of 16 rounds or whatever.
I was gonna say, I was actually a little confused about how many rounds there were, because boxing is one of those sports where it kind of varies depending on the fight. They all get negotiated out, and it was not made clear how long this fight was gonna be.
Yeah, because they didn't tell you it was gonna be.
They mentioned 3 rounds a couple times.
They expected him to go down in 3. They expected him to knock Rocky out in 3 rounds.
Yeah, because Creed was calling him out on that, but then it seemed like that was going to be the end of the fight if Rocky could last the 3. But he went. I think they said it was 15.
It was 15,
something like that. Yeah. Which I think it's usually 12. When they showed the 13, I got super confused.
I mean, maybe it's different now than it was in 1975 too.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a while.
It seems like that would be the kind of thing. I mean, and it's a title fight and all that stuff. But yeah, I really so some things like kind of hit differently this time than before, because this is a movie that like you've seen referenced and you've seen like in different contexts. Like first of all, I did not remember that Rocky was an enforcer.
Yeah, that stood out to me this time too. I'm like, oh, he's actually like, he was told to break this guy's fingers for not paying up or whatever, and of course he didn't do it. So like, he had this kind of moral superiority or moral core over the crime boss that he was working for. Although the crime boss turned out to be like kind of generous and like paid for his training.
Yeah. I thought that was really interesting. Like, they didn't like he the loan. I don't even know if you would call him necessarily a crime boss. He was a loan shark.
Sure.
But I mean, he wasn't. It's not like it was like drugs or smuggling or anything. It was specifically loans. They chose not to. They chose not to have Rocky. They chose not to show Rocky actually doing any violence to the people that owed money, which I thought was an interesting choice. Yeah, and you're right. A lot of movies, either Rocky would get to a point where he's like, I'm not gonna, I'm not, I'm, I got this shot. I'm done with this, and then he would, he would have turned away the $500 or something, tried to, or been like, oh, I'm gonna, but they kind of, he just is like, it's like this guy was just a like kind of matter of fact. I'm the way that we do business is that I loan people money, and if they don't pay me back, then I break their thumbs or I break their legs or whatever. And
Right.
that's just,
you're making me look bad in front of everybody
Right.
else.
that's just how it is. He wasn't necessarily. I did think that was interesting that he wasn't necessarily portrayed as like an opportunistic villain. And even
yeah, and then Rocky, like, kind of working for him and taking the money for the training, like you said, was just kind of like just also kind of frank, just like, yeah, this is the reality of his situation and this is what he's doing to make ends meet, and like, we're not really gonna say that that's bad, we're just gonna present it how it was.
Yeah. Yeah, very very interesting choices. And yeah, some of the other stuff, I feel like Rocky has several like sort of save the cat moments in the first act of the movie that sort of shows that he's not just another bum fighter.
Like his interactions with his pets.
Yeah, he's got the pets. He gets the girl off the street corner. And yeah, a couple other things. Although, did you notice that he stole the turtle food?
Oh yeah,
I did not, actually.
He said, you have
to pay for that turtle food. He's like, crime doesn't pay or something like that.
Yeah, he says crime doesn't pay, and then he walks out with it.
Yeah.
And then the meat locker thing. For some reason, I had it in my head that he beat up the meat because he didn't have access to a gym, but he definitely does have access to a gym. He just sort of, it's like
that felt completely unnecessary. I mean, I'd always heard that this was something that happened in Rocky, but it did not really seem to be like, why is this in here, other than someone really wanted it to happen.
Well, it was like, I mean, I think it was just like he would do his morning jog, and he would get the steak from Polly, and he would just sort of blow off some steam by punching the meat, and then Polly used that as like a gimmick. So I think it was like, even in the fiction, it was kind of a little bit of a gimmick, more so than
right. Boxing has always had that sort of a thing. So
yeah, more so than And then the other thing with the training that occurred to me, and I don't know, when he drinks the eggs, which is another like super famous moment.
Yeah.
Like, I had always assumed that was like a health thing, like a protein shake, like a primitive protein shake situation. But this time watching it, like, I wonder if he didn't have a stove. And that was just the only way that he could, get the protein into his glass from his glass.
I saw it in the first light. It's just like, you you eat a bunch of eggs because they're high in protein, and that's that. Yeah. He's just doing it raw.
Saves time. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure, but it just for the first time it kind of occurred to me because that apartment wasn't super nice, and he was living, he's living alone.
Yeah, with the mattress knifed into the wall as his punching bag. Yeah, it's not the greatest.
And then I really like Apollo.
Yeah.
I
So
think
first of all, Carl Weathers is a legend.
Yeah.
I really liked his performance in this film. And then, of course, seeing him more recently in some other
but like
things
he's
as well.
barely in it. Like,
yeah,
he's only in a few scenes, which I thought was
honestly,
really
he's like
up
so
until the start of
charismatic.
the fight, I feel like he was probably in maybe 3 scenes, and he stole the entire movie with those 3 scenes. Because, and let's face it, the first hour and a half of this movie is fucking miserable. Personally, I am not a fan of this movie. It takes, I think, an hour until Rocky even figures out that he has a fight, which is entirely too long. But I feel that Carl Weathers does a really good job in like very quickly setting up who Apollo Creed is, how he works, and how smart he is compared to Rocky, who is very much not a thinker, not a planner, not a marketing person, and how focused he is on just trying to keep his brand going, make this event happen, rather than like actually taking Rocky seriously. And I think that he does a fantastic job setting all of that up in maybe 5 minutes of screen time. And I wish the rest of that movie had been as effective and as concise.
You're crazy. I feel like you're Kendall and I'm Ian.
I don't agree with any of that bit about it being too slow on the build-up, but I do agree that Carl Weathers was awesome, and I loved his entrance into the ring at the end where he's Uncle Sam. I want you.
He's such a ham, yeah.
Yeah, and then Rocky's like, "Hey, it looks like a big flag."
Yeah.
Well, because I just like, it's like he very much represented this guy that just thinks that he hasn't faced a real challenge in so long, and he doesn't think that tonight's going to be that night, and I'm a fan of Rocky specifically. Like, I am a fan of when Sylvester Stallone plays Rocky. I like him, but he's not like, it's not like I'm a Sylvester Stallone fan. I'm not an 80s action movie guy. I hate Bruce Willis. If Bruce Willis, the movie that Bruce Willis plays a boxer in, I'm not a fan of. Pulp Fiction. But I love the all the little stuff, but yeah, like that, my favorite moment, my two favorite moments in the film. One right before the night before the fight, when he goes in and Rocky realizes, oh, I don't actually have a shot at winning this. But I have to go the distance. And during in any other sports film, they would have that scene, and then, I mean, not any other sports films. There's actually lots of sports films where the protagonist loses, but like, you see that scene going into it, like, as just a regular viewer, and you're like, oh, but he's gonna overcome it. But it's like, no, actually, the goal is just to last.
All right.
And when he tells
so I want to talk
Adrian,
about that scene really quick. The scene where he figures out that he can't win. It's not that he saw the competition. It's not that anything changed. He walked into a big room, saw how big the room was, and then decided, I'm scared. I can't do it. And that's okay. But I feel like it could have been more. Like, he could have seen the other guy warming up. He could have seen anything. It just felt out of nowhere, kind of, that like this happened.
Well, in the hour and a half leading up to that you found too boring, Nick, I think it adequately establishes.
I mean, no, I understand that. I'm just saying it changed very rapidly, and during that hour and a half lead up where all the characters were generally awful people, which is fine because you're establishing how awful they are, but we'll stick to this. I'll come back to that later because I hate this movie and I wish I hadn't seen it. I liked this movie better before I'd seen it, when all I knew about it was pop culture stuff from it.
Well, then you'll really like the sequels.
I honestly probably will like the sequels better, that the characters are already established, because they spent way too long establishing these awful characters that were very one note and did not change throughout the movie. Except for Rocky and maybe Adrian, who were all right. But all the side characters other than that weren't great. So yeah, he goes into this big room and then decides that he can't do it. And he it's this big, powerful moment for him, and I think it's a good moment. I just would have liked to have maybe had more of, I don't know, something to intimidate him a little more than these giant posters with him wearing the wrong shorts.
But like the whole idea is that like he's this bum, right? And like his only fights are such small time. And like you saw the ring that he was in at the beginning. And now like he walks into a place like this, like into Apollo Creed's world, right? And it just serves as such a stark contrast to what who he is and what he's he's used to, that it just lays him out.
And it's not even like he is. I mean, Mick is the old guy, right? Yeah. I should know this. Mick kicks him out of his locker.
I expected more from Mick after the scene where he basically agreed to be the trainer. There's very little Mick. I expected far more Mick in this movie.
I think he does more. Most of the famous Mick training scenes are in Rocky 2.
Yeah, that's kind of what I figured after the movie was over. It's like there must be more from this guy, because
I remember
there are. Rocky 4 is the famous one, I think, and Rocky 2 is generally
Rocky 2 and 3. Yeah. I think for me, Rocky 1 and 2 kind of are two parts of the same story, but like he's not even, the thing is, like, he's not even even among the random dudes in Philadelphia, he's not even willing to put himself out there at the beginning of the movie. He wins his first. He wins his first fight and still nobody takes him seriously, because he wins his first fight and he gets paid $40.
Yeah,
which
is about $250 now. I looked up the conversion.
Okay. Which is something, but
nothing. It's still not enough to get punched in the face
for the winner, and the loser gets $17. Like,
yeah,
my dinner was more than that tonight.
And his next one's in 2 weeks. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And his next one's in 2. Yeah. So that's, obviously that's why he can't be and so he's going from that to fighting the heavyweight champion of the world. It's not even, they're not even in the same league, but he has, but he still is doing the best he can. I love that when he tells Adrian, she says, "So what are we going to do about it?" She doesn't say, "Well, you shouldn't fight him," like every girlfriend in every boxing movie ever. Or she doesn't say, and even Adrian in some of the sequels, or she doesn't say, "Oh, I believe in you, you can do it." Cause she's got her own hangups with him, with him fighting. She can't even watch the fight. She has to wait in the locker room. It's such a great moment. And then he just says, this is my goal. And I don't know. I just feel like that is, and now that I'm thinking about it, there are, Breaking Away, Eddie the Eagle. There are various sports movies that I've seen over the years where the goal is just to show that you should be taken seriously, show that people have been underestimating you. But it just, I don't know, it just hits different when you know that he's going to lose, but he's going to, and then the second moment that I love is in about the second or third round. Apollo's corner guy says, he thinks this is a fight. He doesn't know it's or he doesn't know it's a show. He thinks it's a fight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there's also a moment when he's watching Rocky on the news punch the meat, and he's like, "Hey, Apollo, you might want to look at this. This guy needs to be taken seriously." And Apollo's
seriously,
yeah. That was one of the scenes I liked because that was a Creed scene, and I think Creed not paying attention was a really good moment there. And I will say, despite the fact that I did not like most of the movie, Rocky does a really good job with the soundtrack, the main bits, the montage, and then the fight at the end is actually quite good.
I mean, the Eye of the Tiger training sequence is iconic for a reason.
I mean,
right?
it 100%.
I mean, it's so iconic, right?
Eye of the Tiger is in Rocky 3, but
yeah, it's not quite that yet. This is just I couldn't name this song.
Gonna Fly Now is the theme from Rocky. Yeah. No, Eye of the Tiger is in Rocky 3. So Rocky 1 he loses, Rocky 2 he wins, Rocky 3 he fights Mr. T, and Eye of the Tiger. He has the Eye of the Tiger because he lost the Eye of the Tiger, but then he finds the Eye of the Tiger, and then Rocky 4 he fights the Russian. And Nick, I think you would really like Rocky 4.
I think I've seen part of Rocky 4.
Rocky 4 and it's a Christmas movie. So
I'm not picking it. Look, I'm not against watching Rocky 4. I suspect it's going to be better than Rocky 1. But I'm still not picking it. You can pick it.
It's the most. It's fine. Yeah. I mean, I think Rocky 4 is the most rockiest movie. Like it really leans into the montages. It's like 88 minutes long or something like that. And there's 2 big boxing fights in it, and there's a big montage where he goes to Siberia and trains in the snow, and it's amazing.
Yeah, I was gonna say I suspect that I would enjoy Rocky a bit more once we've moved past the establishing the really slow establishment of the characters, and I'm hoping there's less Polly in the future. I don't know.
He's around, but he gets a robot friend in Rocky 4. So.
What? Okay. All right. I don't know what to do with that information, but okay.
I'm telling you, you got to watch the sequels. They make some choices.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of scenes that I felt really dragged on. I mean, they all kind of work to the movie's purpose. I'm not going to say that there's no point to any of these scenes. They all establish that everyone in Rocky's life is generally awful. They're all incredibly selfish for the most part, except for maybe Adrian, but she's just kind of quiet, so how would you even tell? Polly's basically out to make money off him. Mickey's just trying to relive his glory days, and I expected more from Mick.
So what do you think about Mick's? Yeah, Mick's big scene, where he comes up to the apartment and he tries to convince him, and then he ends up getting shouted out of the apartment. But then Rocky goes after him.
I really liked. So I like the Rocky calls him out. He's like, I needed you 10 years ago. I really like that. And then I like that their reconciliation, that we didn't hear the dialogue.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's extremely well done, actually, because Rocky is fully justified in his anger towards Mickey. He's completely right to be mad about this guy who thought who gave up on him a long time ago, and only now that he gets the shot does he care about him again. But on the other hand, him being so desperate that he realizes he needs him, even despite that, and goes after him. I think it's just well done.
I think so. Nick says everybody's selfish in this movie, and I don't know that I agree with that. I think there are a lot of unhappy people. I think that Polly is an alcoholic, and he is in rough. I mean, Polly's just in rough shape. He's a victim of his alcoholism, and he is where he is. Adrian she's she's very like she's shy and introverted and just sort of again kind of stuck in a rut until she gets out of it. Rocky is doing his best, but he's not proud of himself. And both Rocky and Adrian have issues with their parents. Her parents told her that she wasn't pretty, so she better be smart, and his dad told him he was dumb, so he better be able to fight. And I feel like he never, she always asks him, why do you fight? And he never really gives her a good reason for it. But the real reason is that's all that he doesn't have. He's been doing it for 10 years, and it's the only thing he knows how to do.
Mm-hmm.
And even Mick has been trying his hardest all his life and hasn't ever really had a shot. So he's just looking for that shot. And I think, and you do see more, he does, like, I think in the sequel he has to catch a chicken, and that's Rocky has to catch a chicken. And that's like the big, like, Mick training scene.
I admit that stuff. I kind of was wondering where that was. So
I thought that was in the first one too. But again, I sort of link the first two movies together. But this one is definitely much more of that, like, sort of gritty 70s. I just think that there's a lot of people who are struggling, and a lot of people who are unhappy, and a lot of people who are doing their best. And I think I don't know. I think that like Polly and Adrian have that fight in the apartment where he trashes the place and it comes after everybody with a baseball bat and stuff. And she gets out. She knows she needs to get out of that situation. But the next day, Rocky is hanging out with Polly again, because he knows that wasn't Polly talking. That was the alcohol. And just I don't know, just like it really hit me. This go around.
I think my main problem with the film, with the beginning of the movie, is the pacing more than anything. It's just really slow.
Pacing is funny. That's funny because I thought it was super fast. I thought the movie flew by. It's
kind of a weird spot because it did not fly by for me. I felt like I was sitting there for a million years.
Because it's only 2 hours. Like, it's 2 hours.
It's exactly
flat, right?
2 hours. Yeah, it is exactly.
And
2
the
hours.
and the
so
fight
it's
is
really
like
not
minutes.
that long. But he doesn't even find out that he gets the fight till I think it's a minute and 10, a minute and 5, something like that. So it just.
Yeah, but it's
once the fight is like set, the movie actually goes pretty fast, and I think the pacing is much better. It's the first half.
You realize that he's gonna get picked before he gets picked, like as soon as Apollo introduces the idea. But
yeah, but that's still 15
but the point of the movie,
later.
yeah, but the movie up till that point is not about gearing up for the fight. It's about establishing who he is now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I still don't. It still feels weird to me, like just the pacing.
I liked it, and
I don't have a better argument for it than that. It's just.
I also
off.
no. It's. I mean, it is what it is. I obviously like there are we see that's why we're all here, because we all have different takes and stuff. And I will say that I liked this more. I've seen the movie. I've seen it like probably 10 times in my lifetime. So, not 50 times, but not twice. And I definitely liked it more this time than when I watched it when I was 12, like the very first time. Because I do think that I missed, I don't want to say that I don't want to be like, oh, you missed the nuances or whatever, but I will say that I did. Like I missed a lot on first viewing, when I was 12, because I was an idiot. I was 12, but I really appreciated the beginning, and also just like sort of knowing how all of the sequels are like very much like, Rocky's the champion of the world, and competitor shows up, and the whole movie is about gearing up for that. I think this movie is just so tonally different from the other from the sequels that I really found it interesting. But anyway, let me think if I had any. I know I talked a lot, but it was my movie.
Yeah.
Sorry you didn't like it. This is one of the best movies ever made.
Hard disagree, but all right. I think this might be one of like the most famous movies that I expected to like at least a little bit. That I was like, this is not my movie. Like I can tell that it's got moments of greatness, and I'm just gonna kind of back away and be like, it's because it came out in 1976, and like they didn't know better. That's why everyone remembers it being the best movie ever. It's okay. It's fine. It's a fine movie. It's definitely better than average. It's just I just didn't like it.
Better than Tombstone.
It's definitely better than Tombstone.
What was the other movie that we watched? What was the last movie we watched?
Which one was
in between Tombstone and this movie? The one that we all liked. That I haven't posted yet.
We like Rear Window.
Rear Window. Okay, so this is this is interesting because I didn't. Well, because Rear Window didn't work for. I'm Nick. That's why I'm saying like I feel like Ian and Nick is like me because Rear Window didn't really work for me, and I think because part of that was the thing, but also it's just I don't know. I just Gonna Fly Now is great.
I like movies where stuff happens, and the first half of this movie.
Is definitely a movie where not a lot happens. It is very slice of life sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I think I really think you should watch the sequels. Well, I'll watch the sequels and I'll let you know if you should watch them.
I'm not against watching the sequels.
You should at least watch Rocky IV. Spoiler: Rocky and Adrian get together. Which you probably know, and they stay together. And Rocky becomes friends with Apollo.
I think the bigger news is that they weren't always together. Therefore, you've spoiled more things. No, it's fine.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter.
This is gonna sound a little bit weird, but one thing I really like in the movie is when like something stretches on for several minutes and it seems like nothing has happened, and it makes me think like they made this decision to spend 7 minutes on this scene, and like I'm gonna try to pull out of this what they want me to pull out of it. Mm-hmm. And so like I don't know if this movie I would say there are any like long stretches where nothing happens, but I think what some people complain about is like slow pacing is actually like conveying an idea.
I understand that they're trying to tell me that Rocky is dumb as fuck, and he's not very good at telling stories. But I swear to God, if he explains Southpaw one more time, I'm just gonna turn the movie off. He does it 3 times in a minute, and I'm done.
That's so funny that you say that because I felt like the Southpaw explanation. I remembered it being so much longer, and it was like, and I felt like it was like
it feels like it's an eternity. It's really not that long, but it feels like a long time.
Because it's the guy.
It's effective, and I hate it. It's very unpleasant.
Because it's that the guy was from South Philadelphia that had that was left-handed. Is that what it was?
Yeah. So it was left-handed.
No, the story is not the problem. The fact that he tells the same story multiple times and he keeps explaining that he is a southpaw and no one wants to fight him. The story where he explains it is fine. It's just him saying that he's a southpaw over and over again.
Well, one of the things I like about him explaining to Adrian, I mean, like, yeah, it was like a little bit awkward, right? But that was the whole point. Again, like,
yeah, I hate it.
He doesn't know how to talk to her. He doesn't have anything to talk about. So he's just talking about being a southpaw because it's the only thing he can talk about. And she's just like sort of politely listening. Yeah. And it doesn't.
And she doesn't have anything. Like, it's not like she has stuff that she wants to talk about. She has nothing to say. And he had to twist her arm just to get out, just to come out here. I will say the one thing, because I do like acknowledge the issues with some of the issues with the choices with how that date got set up. I do like Polly throwing the turkey out and keeping the leg
just for himself.
Yeah.
It wasn't done yet either.
Well, no, I think it was. Turkey. I think it was because he was he pulled it out without any pot holders. So I thought it was just in the oven to keep warm.
Oh, maybe that could be.
I didn't think that hard about it.
Yeah,
because she, he's back from.
Like the idea that he was eating raw turkey.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, the legs do get done first. Because that's why theoretically you butterfly them. Although I think that whenever people butterfly turkey, I think the whole thing ends up being a little dry. But that's just me. Stick a stick of butter in your turkey. That'll make it nice.
I was gonna say, I've eaten more turkeys cooked by you than I've cooked turkeys myself. So
I've been working on it. Look for the Thanksgiving episode of Hold the Mustard here soon.
Are you gonna include a turkey guide?
Yeah, I scripted out a recipe, an entire Thanksgiving dinner worth of recipes. So hopefully I actually record it. Let me think.
Remember to remove your gizzard packet.
I actually mentioned that one time I forgot, and my friends still will not shut up about it.
We will not. We absolutely will not.
But yes, that is included in the guide. They're also not. It's also harder to do. Like, they changed the way that they, like, back then it was like it was literally like just the gizzard was like shoved up in there, like, to where now it's like all in a bag and like kind of sticks out anyway. So it's like it's harder to miss.
Yeah.
But yeah, and forget their first date is on Thanksgiving. Never forget that their first date is on Thanksgiving. So you can watch this movie on Thanksgiving and then watch roughly one Rocky movie a week until you get to Rocky 4 on Christmas. So just keep that in mind.
I know what Nick's going to be doing for the next.
Oh yeah, that's totally on my list.
I signed up for an MGM Plus subscription, so I think I am going to be trying to watch those. I hope they're all on there, because it wasn't streaming anywhere else.
I can't even tell you when the last time I saw the second one was. I mean, I couldn't tell you when the last time I saw this one was. It's been many years.
The second one, I made a point of watching with my wife like 10 years ago when I was showing her. There was a stretch where I realized that she hadn't seen a lot of movies that I had seen, and I made a point of kind of showing her movies in a very mansplaining way. But it was very important that she saw the first two Rocky movies, because I like I said, I think of them as like kind of two parts of a whole. And then the third one's got Mr. T and Eye of the Tiger. So it's like, even if the movie's not good, it's got those things. And then the fourth one is great. Yeah. But the fourth one is one giant music video.
I mean, that's the parts where the first one went super right was montages and had great music. So.
Which is so weird, because like when modern movies do that, where like the first movie is like objectively just like a good movie, and then the sequels are just like them extending the one famous scene for the whole movie. I hate when they do it, but with Rocky, totally works.
Well, a lot of movies nowadays have music over the entire movie, whereas this movie did not pay for those rights and had a lot of scenes where there is no music or very quiet music. There's a lot more silence in this movie than you have, I think, with any movie that would get made today. That wasn't like making a deliberate choice, like say 1917 or something like that. Or
no movie we reviewed that I think has the perfect amount of music. I'm gonna go with High Noon.
No.
You know, the one song.
Even one, we paid for one song, and by God, we're gonna get our money's worth.
I watched A Real Pain, which you can see my review of it on YouTube. Movie, but it was one of those movies that had one song was like almost the whole soundtrack, and it was like I forget which song it was, but it was a very like generic classical piano piece that you've seen in 700 other movies. All right, I think I said all I have to say, but did you guys have anything else to say?
I feel like there was more that I wanted to say, but I'm just so over this movie. Let's see. Yeah, relationship stuff, just how slow it was. Yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of character stuff. From the sound of it, there's probably a lot of like subtle things that I missed that I would probably catch on a second viewing. I was just pretty over the film halfway through it. Really pushing myself to keep going and not constantly do that thing where I stretch a movie out by pausing and then thinking about it and then watching it, and just it's the worst possible way to watch a movie. I feel like my ADHD has gotten so much worse. I have to like physically stop myself from pausing movies and walking away and never wanting to come back. This was definitely one of those that made that so much worse during that first hour or so. So, yeah. Not a huge fan of the movie, but it definitely picked up. So,
See, when I have that happen, I just walk away and let it keep playing and then come back.
See, I don't want to miss anything. So like it can during a really slow movie that I absolutely hate. It can take me significantly longer than the runtime to get through a movie, and I hate that I do that to myself. But
I would never do either of those things. The only reason I'm gonna pause a movie is if I like need to run to the bathroom or something, and even that I try to avoid.
Yeah,
but yeah,
I mean, I try to avoid it. I don't want to do it. Sometimes I just feel like I'm compelled to do it. So I try not to, as much as possible. I put the remote far away from me, and
I try to have my movie watching experience be as similar to the theater as possible. So if I have to pee, I have to miss part of it.
I mean, in a theater, I'm actually way better about it because I can't stop it, and I just have one thing to focus on. So theaters are actually the ideal viewing way for me because I can't stop it even if I wanted to, and I don't want to miss anything. So,
all right, Nick. You're next, right?
All right. Yeah, so I'm up next. I need a palate cleanser for my personal preferences, so I'm going to pick one of those movies that, you're probably is just going to be on in the background during all the family gatherings that happen around this time of year. It's probably been in the same way that it's been a long time since you guys have seen Rocky. It's probably been 12 years since I've seen this movie. I was going to give you guys a choice between a World War II film and something else, but I've chose this something else.
Just do it.
I'm going to go with Gladiator from 2000.
Oh, cool. Seeing the sequel coming out in here shortly, too.
I thought about the sequel that comes out in 2 days, but I just want the original.
Yeah, no. The fact that I remembered that the sequel exists is a minor miracle. Like I swear, I've seen probably a dozen movies that had that trailer this year. And every single time I'm like, oh yeah, there's a Gladiator movie. It doesn't make any sense that they're making a sequel because the guy dies.
Yeah, but if it wasn't for Pedro Pascal being in that movie, I probably would have ignored.
Right, and it's Pedro Pascal, so like I'm sure it'll be good. It'll probably be great. It's like Pedro Pascal and Denzel Washington, and it like is clearly like well produced and everything. But but we'll see what we think of the first Gladiator movie next time on the KendallCast Movie Roundtable. This podcast is a production of the KendallCast Podcast Network. You can support the show for just $2 a month at patreon.com/KendallCast or make a direct donation through the PayPal link at kendallcast.ninja. Every little bit helps. Every little bit helps. Every little bit helps.